In recent years, Formula One has become more and more popular.
They almost make contact into turn 9. Verstappen stays ahead.
In the new era of racing sport, enormous amounts of money is put into Formula One. With series and documentaries such as Netflix's Drive to Survive promoting the sport, the number of viewers has surged, and the sport now generates higher revenues than ever before. Formula One is an extremely profitable and expensive sport, but not due to the same reasons as other sports. In comparison, football is expensive and tremendously profitable because the sport is huge worldwide. All over the globe, people play and follow this sport, and this is what makes the sport so lucrative. Formula One is expensive for a completely different reason. Formula One is very concentrated in the sense that only 20 drivers are part of this enormous circus of speed and drama. Each racing team have budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars each season, and they only have 2 drivers each. That's one of the main reasons why Formula One drivers are some of the most paid athletes in the world. But exactly how much does a Formula One driver make? Let's take a look at how money moves in the Formula One industry and find out exactly how much each driver makes in the current Formula One season. Formula One is a massive sport with 500 million fans around the world. It's also a huge industry with over 50,000 employees in over 30 countries. But unlike other sports where it's possible to succeed without needing funding from multi-million-dollar companies and investors, Formula One is a sport where this is virtually impossible. F1 has made billions of dollars annually for the last decade, while the highest paid drivers get their fair share, making them one of the highest paid athletes in the world. But where does all the money come from? Formula One racing teams are funded on the earnings from prize money, funds from Formula One management, financial arrangements, sponsors, partnerships, endorsement deals, and investments from their manufacturers. As Formula One has gained more popularity, we also see rich private investors funding F1 teams, like Canadian billionaire Lawrence Stroll and Russian oligarch Dmitry Mazepin, both of which made sure their sons were earned one of the 2 driver spots on their team. However, amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Dmitry Mazepin and his son Nikita terminated their contract with the Haas Formula One team after refusing to compete under a neutral flag.
Nikita Mazepin, Haas F1 team.
Oh, and it's Nikita Mazepin off.
Oh well. Nevertheless, Formula One is now a massive billion-dollar industry that employs thousands of people. The racing teams are the businesses within the industry that keep the sport going. They have major revenue streams each year, but they also have high costs. Roughly, we can divide their spending into 4 main categories: research and development, salaries, production, and operations. In today's video, we're going to provide some insights to the F1 drivers' salaries and the reasons why they are so high. Formula One drivers earn their money mainly from 3 sources: salary, bonuses, and endorsements. Salary is the main income for most of the drivers. This is the payment the racing teams directly pay the drivers according to their contract, which can vary greatly from driver to driver. Secondly, we have bonuses. These are payments that the driver receives based on performances. These bonuses pay out based on point scoring, wins, or of course titles. Each driver has individual clauses in their contract detailing it. In 2012, the Lotus F1 team experienced exactly how these bonuses may impact their budgets. According to his contract, the Lotus Formula One driver, Kimi Räikkönen, got paid $60,000 each time he scored a championship point. In the following 2 seasons, he scored 390 points, as well as 13 podiums and 2 wins, which led to a bonus payout of $23 million, almost causing Lotus F1 team to go bankrupt. Since then, the racing teams have been more reserved when it comes to huge bonuses. Finally, we have endorsement deals. This is payouts the drivers receive from different companies for promoting their brands. Lewis Hamilton is one of the most endorsed F1 drivers today and makes around $12 million each year from endorsement deals from brands like Tommy Hilfiger, IWC, Sony, Bose, and Monster Energy. And now to what the F1 drivers actually make, and we'll start off with the drivers from AlphaTauri. Here we find rookie Yuki Tsunoda with the lowest salary in F1 of $750,000, while his teammate Pierre Gasly makes $5 million. For Haas Formula One team, we find Mick Schumacher making $1 million a year. His teammate Kevin Magnussen, who replaced Nikita Mazepin just before the season, earns $6 million. For Williams, we find drivers Nicolas Latifi and Alexander Albon making $1 million and $2 million. Moving up, we find drivers from Alfa Romeo. The newcomer from Formula 2, Guan Yu Zhou, earns $1 million a year, and the ex-Mercedes driver and F1 veteran, Valtteri Bottas, makes 10 times as much with a salary of $10 million a year. As we move up the scoreboards, the numbers increase. For Alpine, we have Esteban Ocon with a salary of $5 million, while Spanish F1 legend Fernando Alonso has a yearly salary of $20 million. Pays to be an old-timer, huh? For Aston Martin's racing team, we have rich boy Lance Stroll earning $10 million a year, while four-time champion Sebastian Vettel cashes in $15. The drivers from Ferrari can't complain either. Even though the Italians pay out less to their drivers than what Aston Martin and Alpine does, Carlos Sainz gets paid $10 million a year, while Charles Leclerc beats him by $2 million with a salary of $12 million. At McLaren, the charming driver from Down Under, Daniel Ricciardo, earns $15 million per year. Lando Norris has, after several years with a $5 million salary, gained a huge raise. He's now making a whopping $20 million, which makes him one of the highest paid drivers in Formula One. Moving on to one of the top teams, we find Red Bull Racing. Red Bull's Mexican driver, Sergio Perez, is paid a respectful amount of $8 million. However, he is overshadowed by his teammate Max Verstappen, who has an incredible salary of $35 million. But hey, it costs to have the reigning champion on your team. With $35 million as well as bonuses and endorsements, Max Verstappen is considered to be the highest paid athlete in his home country of the Netherlands. But the biggest differences in salary payouts is at Mercedes-AMG Petronas F1 team. Newcomer George Russell cashes out a humble $5 million a year, while Lewis Hamilton earns $40 million, making him the highest paid driver in Formula One. With an average salary of over $11 million, F1 drivers are among the highest paid athletes on the planet. But why are they so highly paid? As they perform, they help their team to generate revenue and exposure. Their economic value to the teams and brands cannot be questioned. Their skill and personality create exposure to their brands and viewers to the sport, and that's why the top drivers are compensated so generously. The economics of Formula One is the same as everywhere else. It's a matter of supply and demand. F1 teams can afford to pay their drivers tens of millions because they generate hundreds. The fact that there are only 20 drivers also means that they're all extremely skilled behind the wheel. All the F1 teams want the best drivers possible and are willing to pay. Many of the racing teams have hundreds of employees working for their success, and all it boils down to are the skills and the execution of the drivers. There's also undoubtedly a high risk factor associated with being an F1 driver. Although driver safety is of paramount importance these days, we are still occasionally reminded of the inherent dangers in the sport. This is arguably what generates the greatest admiration for the most famous drivers, and those pushing their skills to the limits every race. Two of our F1 drivers have made the Forbes list of the highest paid athletes in the world. Max Verstappen has made his debut on the list, placing at number 27, ahead of Serena Williams. At number 8, making the famous top 10 list, we find Lewis Hamilton between Tom Brady and Roger Federer. The popular Brit reportedly had a total earning of $82 million in 2021. Okay, so that wraps up our overview of how much money F1 drivers make. If you liked this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and while you're down there, subscribe to our channel as more content will be heading your way shortly.